So I'm going to be starting by showing you an actual resume that I received very recently, and then let's see what are the typical mistakes the student has committed. This is a two-page resume that I got. Let's look at it to understand the mistakes the student has done. One of the biggest mistakes many people do is carelessness, and that exhibits in form of spelling mistakes and typo. For example, look at this. In this case, the student has mistaken the word career with carrier. But not just that. This could be in a way construed by the HR professional as weakness in English. But look at this. This typo is more like carelessness. So when someone looks at the resume, it immediately highlights the fact that the person has not given due respect and therefore could be someone who is not a very responsible person. And immediately a negative impression has gone in. One of the very important elements I keep telling my students is that the resume, when seen, should scream and talk about you as a professional. As a fresher, you have to break the mold. You need to tell the interviewer that, look, I'm no more a student, I'm no more a kid, I'm a responsible professional. Let's highlight certain elements where that professionalism or the lack of it is being exhibited in this resume. First is, look at this element. The email address Sam_Bond. Now, Bond is obviously not his family name. Probably he is trying to exhibit himself as James Bond. Immediately talks about the fact that he is probably still a kid. Now, if you happen to have such an email address and you don't have alternate email address, my suggestion, create a professional email address, and that is something that you can forward to all the companies where you're looking for a job. Similarly, sometimes choice of words also exhibit your lack of professionalism. Look at the hobbies, for example. Chatting with friends. Now, the moment you use words like chatting, it basically highlights a waste of time. Instead, rephrasing it as interacting with friends or spending time with friends probably will give you a much more positive twist to it. Similarly, lack of awareness of basic English knowledge and the syntax of English is also highly unprofessional. For example, how should one write comma? The rule of comma says you should not leave a space before comma, but you should leave a space after comma. So this is wrong. The same thing has also been highlighted in other areas. Today's companies have started emphasizing on the written skills and the basic computer skills. And one of the very important things that companies are looking for is, do you have basic working knowledge of MS Office? Now I'm going to show you how this student who has basically presented the resume in a Word format actually is not very comfortable with MS Word. Now look at this part. What do you notice? You notice the fact that these are not in straight line, which immediately tells me that the student has not actually used tab. Instead, the student has actually used the keyboard as a typewriting tool and then fed in the enter marks, which basically tells me he is not very comfortable with computers. Small things, but these are also going to expose your weakness in your strength. Now, there are quite a few other mistakes students normally do. As a part of our resume verification, we are someone who take care to see that these mistakes don't go in the final version of the resume. But that is not it. Resume should not just be professional. Resume should also help you to sell yourself. It should be tight. For example, what are the elements that improvements could have been brought in this resume to make this resume a tighter and much more focused resume? Let's have a look at that now. The first element in that is the language itself. Look at this language. What has been used here is basically sentences. Rather than using sentences, if phrases are used, then the point is captured much more. You don't necessarily need to use all the pronouns like I, my, our, because obviously if you have been the captain, You cannot obviously be a captain of some other class. So rather than saying I was the captain of my class, you can always rephrase it as captain of the class during so and so year. While doing so, what are you doing? You are bringing the focus to the main point, the fact that you have leadership skill. Similarly, be very clear. What is a resume? Resume is a marketing tool. Now this resume is going to help the company select you. So it's very important, it should always speak from the company's perspective because company is the customer. For example, look at the career objective. The career objective reads, to pursue a challenging career and be a part of a progressive organization that gives scope to enhance my knowledge, skill and learning. But this objective is basically highlighting the benefit the student is going to get. What exactly is the benefit that the company is going to get? If you don't mention that from the company's perspective, why would the buyer, that is the customer, in this case the company, be interested in you, the product? Look at the revised objective. This probably is a stronger one because here the benefit is not just being spoken of the student but also of the company. The third very important element is learn the art of highlighting the right words. For example, here highlight has been used but the purpose is not met. Learn the art of highlighting those words which will bring and take the attention of the interviewer's eyes and direct additional questions. For example, instead of having highlighted Vizag May 2018 or May 2019, I only would have highlighted words like ISRO SAR so that more questions can be asked on this. And how am I in a way improving the chances of being asked a question? By highlighting it. What's the purpose of highlighting? Purpose of highlighting is it will stand out and therefore the interviewer's probability of noticing that is going to be higher. Similarly, learn the art of exhibiting positive profile. For example, look at the hobbies, watching television, chatting with friends, reading books. Now notice the fact that this probably highlights the fact that you are a little introvertish person. I normally tell my students, give the company what the company wants. Today, company wants people who can work in teams. And therefore, how do you, in a way, highlight the fact that you're a person who likes working in teams? One of the tools could be to choose the hobbies correctly. So one of the great comments I talk to my students is, and the feedback that I give is, if your hobbies are all introvertish, that's a little bad news. Why don't you bring in one hobby that is extrovertish? For example, this gentleman does have extra hobbies. It was therefore not that he did not have extra hobbies, it's just that he did not select the right hobbies. So let's revise. Now look at these hobbies now. When we say going on long drives, it basically brings in a degree of adventure. So elements of this nature would also strengthen the case. Finally, the way it is projected is also very important. For example, post the whole change, this is the final version. Now look at this version and notice the fact that this is much more professional than the earlier version. To conclude, resume is a very important document. Don't take it lightly. Once you frame the resume, look at it from the perspective of what it communicates. And remember, the communication should be only one, the fact that you are a professional. And if you can do so, as I said earlier, 50% of the battle has been won.